Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you guys are here. I'm going to hopefully answer or at least go over one of the biggest questions that has been on the minds of many Enlisted players in its lifetime over the past 2 years, myself included. And that is, why isn't Enlisted on Steam? So we're going to be going through the different major theories on why Enlisted isn't on Steam. And I'm also going to quickly go over here at the start, why go on Steam? As someone who has launched a game on Steam, I think that I can maybe clear up some of the misconceptions that some people out there might have about the platform. So starting off about why would you go on Steam? Well, first, it's not a hard process to do. I think a lot of players out there who have no experience with game development might think that going on Steam is like some lengthy, long process. You have to get your game certified and you have to, talk with these executives who are like going to clear your game. No, you spend like $100 and they make sure your game is what you say it is, and they don't really care what it is. You just have to abide by the rules of Steam. And at this point in Steam's lifetime, those rules are incredibly vague, and it's very simple to get your game on the platform, and it's very cheap. So there's no long process. There's no sucking up to a Valve, owner or something like that. Like, you don't have to personally talk with Gabe Newell to get your game on Steam. It's a very simple process. Again, if some college students can get their game on Steam that I did, Darkflow and Gaijin can definitely get enlisted on Steam. But why go on Steam? What's the benefit? Well, publicity is the number one thing. Steam is the largest storefront on PC gaming, right? For all of PC gaming, it's Steam, right? Anyone who plays games on their PC has a Steam account for the most part, other than the weirdos out there, I suppose. But the majority of people who play games on PC have some sort of Steam account, and they use that Steam account to play many different games. And so at the end of the day, Steam is really just a large storefront, and by having your game on that large storefront, you're going to be putting more eyes on your game. But just like any storefront out there, Steam doesn't magically make your product good, and it's not going to magically sell your product. It really isn't going to sell your product for you at all. It's just going to let more people see it. If you take a bad product and you put it on the shelf at Walmart, you're not going to magically start selling that product more. You might sell a little bit more because you just simply have more eyes on it, but it's not like it's going to magically become a good product and you're going to suddenly make millions of dollars. No, it's still a bad product that nobody wants. Steam's the exact same way. It's going to put more eyes on your game, and if the game is good, that's going to result in more players and a lot more money coming in. But if the game is bad, it's going to have the complete opposite effect, where you're going to actually have a lot of players who will forever have a bad impression and actually not play the game, even if it does flip around and become better. For example, look at No Man's Sky, a game that had a horrible launch, and today there are still many players who will not even touch it just because they have such a bad reaction and impression of it when it first released. The other major thing that benefits, or that Steam benefits you with, is support. Servers, inventory, anti-cheat, cloud, etc. There's so many different benefits that Steam has, and not all of these are things that Enlisted really needs. It has its own anti-cheat system already. It's probably not going to take advantage of things like servers or inventory or cloud saves or anything like that, but the option is still there, and it's something that Darkflow could potentially utilize in the future. I'm not sure if War Thunder uses any of these systems or any of these benefits that Steam has, but again, the option is there, and it's something that could potentially help Darkflow in the future. So with these benefits, why isn't Enlisted on Steam? Well, the biggest theory that I've seen is based on an interview done by Gaijin CEO Anton in 2019. Anton basically said that Gaijin wouldn't have launched War Thunder on Steam today in its current state, explaining that most users that we have there, we brought there ourselves, and Steam just gets its rather big commission benefiting from our efforts. Basically saying that Steam doesn't really help them and doesn't bring anybody in, and so why bother? He explains that Steam, before, when they launched in 2013, had a much smaller amount of games and players, meaning more eyes were on the game. But today, it's bloated. There's too many games, which is a fairly good criticism of the platform, one that I don't necessarily disagree with, but I do think that his overall point is a little skewed, or at the least outdated as it was in 2019. And let me explain why. War Thunder launched in 2013 with an average player count of about 4,000 players. In 2019, when Anton had this interview, that number had tripled to 12,000. And today, that number is more than 10 times its original amount, sitting at 55,000 average players. Now, that alone shows a major increase in player count over the past 10 or so years. But Gaijin easily could have done that by themselves, right? Through good marketing and development practices. Whatever your opinion is on War Thunder and the game, you have to admit that it's fair to say that they could potentially have done that themselves. But, in my opinion, the biggest point against this lies in the fateful month of March 2020. You guys all remember March 2020? Being stuck at home, you can't go outside, so you boot up Steam and you jump on the biggest time sink you can find. War Thunder. War Thunder saw a 60% increase in players from February 2020 to April 2020. You cannot and you will not convince me that that is because of some genius marketing that happened to coincide with a global pandemic. No, it's because Steam brought those players on board. It's because players just booted up Steam and they happened to see War Thunder on the platform because there was a massive influx in players to the platform itself, right? That's just what Steam does. I'm not trying to sit here and argue or take away from Gaijin, right? I'm not trying to say that Steam is the sole reason for War Thunder's success. It's not. But I think it's incredibly unfair to say that Steam didn't have a major part in the growth and the success of War Thunder. And there's no reason why it couldn't do the same for Enlisted. So I don't really think that that's a very fair reason why they don't want the game on Steam. Now, the next point that a lot of people make is Steam takes too much money. And I don't really think this is necessarily the case either. Or if it is the case, it doesn't really make sense to me. Because let's go over what Steam takes as a cut of sales. So when you first put your game on Steam, it takes 30% of all sales. After the first $10 million, it drops down to 25%. And after another 40 million, putting you at net 50 million in profits, it is dropped to just 20%. Now, because of the fact that Gaijin is the publisher of Enlisted, and Gaijin already has some level of sway with Steam because of War Thunder, I'd imagine that they would more than likely be able to get this down to potentially a lower amount, or if it isn't a lower amount, at least start at a lower amount. But even if that's not true, I still think that this is, even if you think it's an unfair amount, which many game developers do, you have to realize that Epic and Microsoft both only take 12%. That's the Epic Game Store, and Microsoft. And often they even pay developers to be exclusively on their store. So if the issue is Steam taking too much money, why wouldn't they just go on Epic or Microsoft? Better yet, if their issue is profit cuts, why are they already working with Sony and Xbox, who both take high cuts as well? Profit sharing just doesn't make any sense to me. There's just no basis for it. And I'm also going to mention that a lot of players out there, I've seen people say like, oh, well, on Steam and in War Thunder, they launch on the platform and then they can change over and they just direct you to their website. That's not actually how things work. Steam specifically says that it gets a cut from all users who are acquired via Steam. I mean, if someone were to still use an older launcher, they wouldn't be subjected to that 30% rule. Only players who use Steam are actually subjected to that rule. And so you can't circumvent that in any way, shape, or form. And again, I know a lot of players out there have kind of mentioned this as like they should just launch on Steam and then they'll be able to like circumvent it by sending you to their main page. It's not actually how things work. Steam definitely gets a cut of that. At least they're supposed to. So again, the end of the day, guys, if profit sharing is such an issue, then why don't they just go on Epic Game Store? Or why don't they go on Microsoft, right? I think that, you can make an argument that 30% is too much for what they could theoretically gain. I disagree, but I could see the argument there. But I do not see an argument to be made that they would be unable to make more money and have a net gain by having the 12% profit sharing from Epic Game Store. And I've even had some people who are or were at some point closer to Darkflow saying that Darkflow has been in communication with Epic Game Store and turned down some pretty sweet deals. But I can't really prove any of that and I can't corroborate any of that. So I think it's important to just kind of mention it, but say like, that's not 100% in any way. So that leaves us with my personal opinion and my personal theory. The game just isn't ready. And I think Darkflow knows it. Darkflow knows that a release on Steam would mean really disaster for Enlisted because the game just it's not ready. It's not where it needs to be. It would get review bombed and it wouldn't ever be able to recover, resulting in less money for Darkflow and really nothing to show for it. The game just has too many issues right now. And Honestly, guys, I said this was a theory for a reason because there's things about this that doesn't make any sense. If the case is that Darkflow doesn't think the game is ready and they want to continue development, then why are so many of the problems that I see with the game, people's biggest complaints with the game, namely progression, why haven't they been worked on and fixed in the past 2 years? Why haven't they been changed and edited and worked on and reworked? I just simply don't understand. So if that is the case, then perhaps we'll see some reworks going forward and maybe a Steam release. Maybe they're just content with where the game is now and they don't see a need to go onto Steam and they don't think that they'll get enough out of going on the platform to warrant doing so. But at the end of the day, guys, I'm not sure exactly why Enlisted isn't on Steam. Maybe it's just something that Darkflow is holding in its back pocket and they'll eventually do when they feel the need is necessary. But for now, we just don't know. Let me know down in the comments below your guys' opinions. Why do you think Enlisted isn't on Steam? Do you think it's one of these 3 theories or something completely different? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments. And guys, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. It does help me out and I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.